The Knight household swarmed with the energy of success, each room adorned with trophies, certificates, and accolades, lining the walls like a testament to their family's achievements. In the heart of it all, Ethan sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of textbooks and notebooks, his brow furrowed in concentration as he tackled yet another assignment. Linda Knight breezed into the room, her heels clicking against the polished marble floors. "Ethan, darling, how many times have I told you? Success waits for no one. You must finish your homework if you want to amount to anything in life." Ethan glanced up, a flicker of frustration crossing his features, before he quickly masked it with a forced smile. "Yes, Mum, I'm working on it." Linda's lips tightened into a thin line of disapproval as she surveyed the cluttered table. "Well, work harder! We didn't raise you to be mediocre, Ethan. We expect nothing but the best from you." Ethan nodded, his shoulders slumping imperceptibly under the weight of his mother's expectations. "I know, Mum. I'll do better. I promise." As Linda swept out of the room, her high heels echoing down the hallway, Ethan let out a weary sigh, his gaze falling back to his textbooks. It seems there was no escaping the relentless pressure to excel, to prove himself worthy of the Knight name. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan found himself caught in the never-ending cycle of success. His every move scrutinized, his every achievement measured against an impossibly high standard. Yet, amidst the chaos of expectations and demands, there were fleeting moments of warmth and kindness, like rays of sunlight breaking through storm clouds. One afternoon, as Ethan sat in his room, poring over his notes for an upcoming exam, his younger sister, Emily, tiptoed into the room, a mischievous twinkle in her eye. "Ethan, guess what?" she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan looked up, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "What is it, Em?" Emily giggled, holding out a handmade card adorned with glitter and stickers. "I made this for you. It's to wish you good luck on your exam." Ethan's heart swelled with warmth as he accepted the card, his eyes misting with tears. "Thank you, Em. That's so sweet of you." Emily beamed, throwing her arms around him in a tight hug. "You're the best big brother ever, Ethan. I know you'll do great." And in that simple gesture of love and support, Ethan found the strength to persevere, to keep pushing forward despite the obstacles that lay in his path. Ethan weaved through the busy crowds of Ivywood University. College life was breathless, a mix of grueling classes, the thrill of fresh independence, and the pressure to succeed. Here, Ethan could finally explore his passions, venturing beyond the rigid expectations his family had laid out for him. Between captivating lectures, nerve-wracking exams, and late-night study sessions fueled by caffeine, a shadow lingered. It was the constant reminder of his parents' relentless push for achievement, a weight that never quite seemed to lift. One evening, as Ethan sat in the library poring over a mountain of textbooks, his friend and classmate, Michael, slid into the seat beside him, a knowing grin on his face. "Ethan, my man, what's with the furrowed brow? You look like you're about to take on the world," Michael quipped, nudging him playfully. Ethan chuckled, running a hand through his tousled hair. "Just trying to keep up, Mike. You know how it is." Michael leaned back in his chair, studying Ethan with a curious glint in his eyes. "So what's the deal with your parents anyway? You never talk about them." Ethan's smile faltered, a shadow passing over his features. "They're complicated. They have this idea of success, this vision of what I'm supposed to be, and sometimes it feels like I'm constantly chasing after something that's always just out of reach." Michael frowned, a flicker of concern crossing his features. That sounds rough, man. But you're not defined by their expectations, you know. You're your own person. Ethan Knight, and don't you forget it. Ethan nodded, a surge of grit coursing through his veins. "You're right, Mike. I won't let their definition of success dictate my life. I want to prove to them, to myself, that I'm not just kind, but smart too. I can make my own mark on the world." With those words stuck in his head, Ethan immersed himself into his studies with renewed vigour. Each assignment, each exam, a chance to prove his worth not only to his parents, but to himself. After his graduation, and moving back to his house, Ethan was seated at the dinner table with his parents. The clinking of cutlery against fine china mirrored the spacious dining room, a stark contrast to the heavy silence that hung between them. "Ethan, dear, you've been awfully quiet tonight," Linda remarked, her tone tinged with a hint of disapproval. Ethan forced a smile, his fingers tracing patterns on the linen tablecloth. "Just thinking, Mum." "About what, Ethan?" David interjected, his voice sharp with impatience. "You've been mulling over your thoughts for far too long. It's time you start making decisive moves like a knight should." Ethan suppressed a sigh, knowing all too well what his parents expected of him. Success, achievement, excellence. The relentless pursuit of greatness, no matter the cost. "I've been considering taking a more active role in the company," Ethan finally confessed, lifting his gaze to meet his parents. "I believe I can contribute in meaningful ways." David arched an eyebrow, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "Oh, and what makes you think you're ready for such responsibility, Ethan?" Ethan squared his shoulders, steeling himself for the inevitable onslaught of skepticism. "I've studied the business inside out, Dad. I know its strengths and its weaknesses. I have ideas and strategies that could take us to new heights." Linda's eyes widened in surprise, her features softening with a glimmer of hope. "You mean to say you want to lead the company, honey?" Ethan nodded, the weight of his decision settling heavily upon him. "Yes, Mum. I want to prove that kindness and success aren't mutually exclusive, that we can run a profitable business while still prioritizing compassion and integrity." David leaned back in his chair, his expression inscrutable. "Bold words, Ethan, but talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words. Remember that." Ethan clenched his jaw, the challenge implicit in his father's words not lost on him. "Oh, I intend to show you, Dad. I'll make you proud." A flicker of something akin to pride danced in David's eyes before he schooled his feature into a mask of neutrality. "We shall see, Ethan. We shall see." And so, the stage was set for Ethan's ascent into the heart of the family empire, a journey fraught with challenges and uncertainties, yet fueled by a determination born of conviction. Weeks turned into months, and Ethan found himself buried in work, his office becoming his second home as he tackled one task after another. The stress was palpable, and it seemed like there was no end in sight. Late one night, Emily, Ethan's younger sister, decided to pay him a surprise visit at the office. She found him buried under piles of paperwork, looking exhausted but determined. "Hey, Ethan," she said softly as she entered, her voice carrying a note of concern. Ethan glanced up, his tired eyes lighting up at the sight of his sister. "Hey, Em! What are you doing here?" Emily approached him, taking in the chaotic scene around them. "I just wanted to check on you. You've been working so hard lately. You need to take a break." Ethan chuckled warily, gesturing to the stacks of documents strewn across his desk. "Oh, wish I could, Em, but there's just so much to do." Emily frowned, her concern deepening. "I get that, Ethan, but pushing yourself to the limit like this isn't healthy. You need to take care of yourself too, you know?" Ethan nodded, a hint of gratitude in his tired eyes. "I know, Em. Thanks for looking out for me." Emily reached out, gently squeezing his shoulder. "Any time, Ethan. You're not alone in this. Remember that." In a rare quiet moment between deadlines, Ethan felt a sense of comfort wash over him, knowing that his sister was there to support him, no matter what. Ethan worked tirelessly, pouring his heart and soul into his role as CEO of the company. Days bled into nights as he navigated the intricate web of corporate dealings, striving to steer the company toward greater heights. Despite the challenges, Ethan remained steadfast, fueled by a burning desire to prove himself to his parents and the world. Amidst the company's ongoing success, Ethan faced an unexpected crisis that threatened to undermine everything he had worked so hard to achieve. It began with a whistleblower coming forward with evidence of unethical practices within the company's supply chain. The allegations were serious, implicating key suppliers in exploitative labour practices and environmental violations. As the news spread like wildfire, Ethan found himself thrust into the eye of the storm, grappling with the fallout and the potential damage to the company's reputation. With shareholders and stakeholders demanding answers, Ethan knew he had to act swiftly and decisively to address the crisis and restore trust in the company. Gathering his top advisors and legal team, Ethan embarked on a comprehensive investigation, delving deep into the allegations and uncovering the truth behind the accusations. It was a daunting task, fraught with challenges and uncertainties, but Ethan remained undeterred, determined to get to the bottom of the matter and implement meaningful changes to prevent such incidents from occurring in the future. After weeks of exhaustive research and countless sleepless nights, Ethan finally emerged with a plan of action. He called for a press conference, where he stood before the assembled media, his voice steady and his demeanour resolute. "Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today to address the recent allegations of misconduct within our company's supply chain," Ethan began, his words carrying the weight of authority. "I want to make it clear that we take these allegations very seriously and we are committed to addressing them in a transparent and accountable manner." With that, Ethan outlined the findings of the investigation, detailing the steps the company would take to rectify the situation and ensure that such lapses in ethical standards would never happen again. He announced new policies and procedures aimed at strengthening oversight and accountability throughout the supply chain, as well as measures to support affected workers and communities. But Ethan didn't stop there. Recognizing that actions speak louder than words, he personally visited the affected factories and communities, listening to the concerns of workers and local leaders, and offering his support and assurance that the company would do everything in its power to make amends. In the weeks and months that followed, Ethan's leadership and integrity shone through as the company weathered the storm and emerged stronger than ever. Shareholders and stakeholders alike praised Ethan for his handling of the crisis, commending his transparency, accountability, and unwavering commitment to doing what was right. As the company continued to grow under Ethan's leadership, Emily's skills and dedication also became increasingly evident. Recognizing her potential, Ethan proposed that Emily take on a more prominent role within the organization. After careful consideration, Emily accepted the offer and was appointed as the Chief Operating Officer, COO. The news of Emily's promotion spread quickly throughout the company, eliciting a mixture of surprise and admiration from employees who had witnessed her rise from a humble position to one of significant influence. But for Ethan, it was a natural progression, proof of Emily's firm commitment and invaluable contributions to the company. As COO, Emily brought a fresh perspective and a wealth of experience to the table. Her keen insight and strategic acumen complemented Ethan's leadership style, creating a dynamic partnership that proved instrumental in driving the company forward. Together, Ethan and Emily worked tirelessly, collaborating on key initiatives and charting the course for the company's future. Their synergy was palpable, each feeding off the other's energy and enthusiasm as they tackled challenges head-on and celebrated victories together. In meetings and boardrooms, Ethan and Emily presented a united front, their shared vision and fixed determination earning them respect and admiration from colleagues and competitors alike. They faced setbacks with resilience and embraced opportunities with optimism, their steer commitment to excellence inspiring those around them to strive for greatness. Outside the confines of the office, Ethan and Emily forged a bond that went beyond their roles as CEO and COO. They confided in each other, offering support and encouragement during moments of doubt and uncertainty. They shared laughter and camaraderie, finding comfort in each other's company among the pressures of corporate life. Together, Ethan and Emily became a brilliant team, their partnership serving as a hope and inspiration in an ever-changing world. And as they navigated the challenges and triumphs that lay ahead, they knew that with each step they took together, they were building a legacy that would endure for generations to come. As the months passed, Ethan's hard work and dedication began to bear fruit. Under his leadership, the company flourished, breaking new ground and reaching unprecedented levels of success. Yet, among the hustle and bustle of corporate life, Ethan never lost sight of his core values: kindness, compassion, and a commitment to making a positive impact on the world. One day, as Ethan and Emily sat in their spacious office, poring over a stack of donation requests from various charities, their parents' disapproving voices mirrored in the back of Ethan's mind.
"But Ethan, why waste money on charity? Everyone should work hard for what they have,"
his father's voice echoed in his head. Ethan shook off the lingering doubts, his gaze meeting Emily's with determination. "We've been blessed with so much, Em. It's only right that we give back to those in need." Emily nodded in agreement, her eyes shining with conviction. "I couldn't agree more, Ethan. We have a responsibility to use our privilege for good." Together, they sifted through the requests, carefully selecting organisations that aligned with their values and had the greatest potential for impact. With each donation, Ethan felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him, a reminder that true success was not measured merely by financial gain, but by the lives touched and the difference made. Even though Ethan and his company poured money into good causes, a prickle of worry remained whenever his parents' disapproval crossed his mind. It was a nagging feeling, like a toothache he couldn't quite ignore. It served as a constant reminder of the vast difference between their worldviews, a gap that felt impossible to bridge. One evening, as Ethan and Emily sat down for dinner with their parents, the topic of their recent charitable donations arose. David and Linda exchanged a disapproving glance, their expressions hardened with disdain.
"Ethan, Emily, we need to talk,"
David began, his tone stern. Ethan braced himself, knowing what was coming.
"Yes, Dad, what is it?"
Linda folded her hands neatly in her lap, her gaze fixed on her children. "We've noticed your recent philanthropic endeavours, and we have to say, we're not pleased." Ethan felt his jaw clench in frustration, but he forced himself to remain composed.
"And why is that, Mum?"
David leaned forward, his eyes boring into Ethan's with intensity.
"Because charity breeds dependency, Ethan. We didn't raise you to be a bleeding heart. Success comes to those who work hard, not those who rely on handouts."
Emily's eyes flashed with indignation, her voice tinged with anger. "But Dad, that's not true. Not everyone has the same opportunities as we do. We have a responsibility to those who are less fortunate." David shook his head, his expression unyielding.
"I'm sorry, Emily, but we raised you better than this. We raised you to be winners, not bleeding hearts."
Ethan felt a surge of frustration bubble up inside of him, but he swallowed it down, determined to keep his composure.
I understand your perspective, Dad. But I believe that true success isn't just about financial gain. It's about making a positive impact on the world, about leaving a legacy of kindness and compassion.
Linda's lips tightened into a thin line, her disapproval palpable.
Well, Ethan, Emily, you may have your beliefs, but don't expect us to support them. We built this company on hard work and dedication, not handouts.
With those final words, the conversation came to an abrupt end, leaving Ethan and Emily to grapple with the gaping divide that separated them from their parents' beliefs. As the months passed, Ethan and Emily dug deeper into their roles as CEO and COO of the company. Their days became a whirlwind of meetings, strategy sessions, and problem-solving as they worked tirelessly to steer the company toward greater success. Yet, with the hectic pace of corporate life, they found comfort in each other's company, drawing strength from their shared vision and firm commitment to their values. One afternoon, as they sat in Ethan's office, poring over the latest financial reports, Emily leaned back in her chair with a sigh. I don't know about you, Ethan, but I feel like we're running on fumes here. When was the last time we took a break? Ethan chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners.
It's been a while, hasn't it? With everything going on, it's hard to find the time.
Emily nodded, her expression thoughtful. I know, but we can't keep pushing ourselves like this forever. We need to take care of ourselves too, you know? Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair.
Oh, you're right, Em. Maybe we should schedule some time off, just to recharge.
Emily smiled, her eyes brightening with enthusiasm. That's the spirit, Ethan. We deserve a little break every now and then. And with that, they made a pact to prioritize self-care and relaxation, even amidst the demands of their busy schedules. As they settled back into their work, Ethan couldn't shake the nagging feeling of concern that had been gnawing at him for weeks. He had noticed a troubling pattern emerging within the company. Instances of employees mistreating their colleagues, particularly those in lower positions. It was a stark contrast to the culture of kindness and respect that he and Emily were striving to cultivate, and it weighed heavily on his mind. Ethan made his way through the cafeteria, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the sound of clinking cutlery and lively chatter. A low thrum of anxiety pulsed in his core. His eyes scanned the room, searching for any signs of discord among the employees, his heart heavy with the knowledge that something was amiss. And then he saw it. A scene that made his blood run cold. A middle-aged man, his face flushed with anger, stood towering over a younger server, his voice dripping with contempt as he berated her for a minor mistake.
You call this coffee? It tastes like dishwater, the man bellowed, his voice laced with venom.
The server, a young woman with tears glistening in her eyes, stammered out an apology, her hands trembling as she tried to rectify the situation.
Ethan felt a surge of anger and disgust rise within him as he approached the scene, his jaw clenched with grit. This was not the kind of behaviour he tolerated in his company, and he intended to put a stop to it once and for all. "Excuse me, sir," Ethan said, his voice firm but calm as he addressed the man. "I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice and treat the employees with the respect they deserve."
The man turned to face Ethan, his expression a mixture of surprise and defiance.
"Who do you think you are, kid? This is none of your business."
Ethan squared his shoulders, meeting the man's gaze with firm resolve.
"I'm the CEO of this company, and I won't stand by while the employees are treated poorly. Now either you show some respect, or you can find somewhere else to eat."
The man's eyes widened in disbelief, but before he could respond, Ethan motioned for him to follow him to his office for a private conversation. Once they were alone, Ethan wasted no time in addressing the man's behaviour, his tone firm but measured as he spoke.
"Why did you treat the server like that?" Ethan asked, his voice tinged with concern. The man shrugged, a look of indifference crossing his features. She's just a server, Mr. Knight. She didn't do her job properly.
Ethan's shock was palpable as he processed the man's words.
That's no excuse for treating her poorly. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of their position.
The man shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his earlier bravado replaced by a sense of unease.
I'm sorry, Mr. Knight. It's just... That's how things were when your father was in charge. He always emphasized the importance of taking responsibility for our roles and treating people according to their designations.
Ethan felt a pang of dismay at the mention of his father's leadership style.
My father may have had his way of doing things, but that doesn't mean it was right. We're striving to create a culture of inclusivity and respect here. That kind of behaviour has no place in our company.
With that, Ethan dismissed the man, his mind swirling with conflicting emotions. As he made his way back to his office, the encounter weighed heavily on his mind, leaving him grappling with the realization that his father's legacy was far more complicated than he had ever imagined. As he pondered the implications of his father's leadership style on the company and its employees, he knew that he had his work cut out for him if he hoped to enact real change and create a workplace where everyone felt valued and respected. Ethan and Emily completed their work at the office. Exhaustion weighed heavily on their shoulders. The day had been long, filled with meetings, emails, and the never-ending demands of running a company. Their muscles ached, but a warm feeling filled their chests. They were changing things, bit by bit. As they made their way home, the tension of the workday began to melt away, replaced by the anticipation of a relaxing evening ahead. Ethan suggested watching a movie, a simple pleasure that offered a brief reprieve from the stresses of their professional lives. Emily's eyes lit up at the suggestion, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten as she eagerly agreed. Once they were home, they wasted no time in settling onto the couch, the soft glow of the television casting flickering shadows across the room. Ethan scrolled through the streaming service, searching for the perfect movie to unwind with. Finally, he settled on a light-hearted comedy, hoping it would provide some much-needed laughter and distraction. As they watched the movie, laughter filled the air, the tension of the day slowly fading into the background. Ethan found himself drawn into the storyline, his mind shortly free from the load of his responsibilities. Yet, as he watched a scene unfold on screen, an idea began to form in the back of his mind, a plan so bizarre and outlandish that his eyebrows shot up. Turning to Emily, he hesitated for a moment, unsure of how she would react to his impulse. But as he caught her eye, he knew he had to share his idea with her, no matter how unconventional it may seem.
Emily, I have a plan,
Ethan began, his voice tinged with excitement. Emily glanced at him, curiosity sparking in her eyes. What is it, Ethan?
It's a little bizarre, Ethan admitted, his words tumbling out in a rush. But I think it could help us understand the employees better, maybe even start a new initiative.
Emily raised an eyebrow, her interest piqued. Okay, now you've got me intrigued. What's this plan of yours? Ethan took a deep breath, steeling himself for Emily's reaction.
I want to disguise myself as a janitor and test the employees' kindness.
Emily's eyes widened in shock, her jaw dropping open in disbelief. Are you serious, Ethan? That's crazy! Ethan nodded, a hint of a smile playing on his lips.
I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. I've been thinking about it for a while now, and I really believe it could give us valuable insight into the company culture.
Emily shook her head, still trying to wrap her mind around Ethan's audacious plan. But why a janitor? Why disguise yourself? Couldn't we just observe the employees without going to such extreme lengths? Ethan sighed, understanding Emily's skepticism, but determined to make her see his perspective.
I want to experience what it's like to be one of the employees. See firsthand how they're treated and how they interact with each other. and I think disguising myself will give me a more authentic experience. It'll be like conducting a social experiment, but within our own company."
Emily chewed her lip, considering Ethan's words carefully. "It's definitely risky, Ethan, and I'm not sure how I feel about you putting yourself in that position, but I can see where you're coming from. If this helps us identify areas where we can improve, maybe it's worth considering." Ethan's heart swelled with gratitude for Emily's understanding and support.
"Thank you, Em. I know it's a lot to ask, but I really believe this could make a difference. And I'll make sure to take all the necessary precautions to ensure my safety. I also know a lot of our employees would behave rudely, yet we'll find out the answer to my thoughts by this."
Emily nodded, her expression serious but resolute. "Okay, Ethan. I'll help you with your plan, but only if you promise to be careful. And if things start to get out of hand, you have to promise to call it off. Deal?" Ethan smiled, relieved that Emily was on board with his plan.
"Deal. Thank you, Em. I won't let you down."
With their agreements in place, Ethan and Emily settled back onto the couch, the movie forgotten as they discussed the details of Ethan's daring scheme. It was a risky endeavour, to be sure, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that it was worth the risk if it meant gaining a deeper understanding of their company and its employees. As they continued to brainstorm ideas and strategize, Ethan's excitement grew, tempered only by a hint of apprehension at the unknown challenges that lay ahead. But with Emily by his side, he knew he had the support and encouragement he needed to see his plan through to the end. And so, as the credits rolled on the movie and the evening stretched on into the night, Ethan and Emily made a pact to embark on this unconventional journey together, ready to confront whatever obstacles lay in their path in their quest to make a positive impact on the world, one kindness test at a time. The next morning dawned bright and early. Ethan and Emily set their plan into motion. Ethan, now transformed into Eddie the janitor, looked at himself in the mirror, marvelling at the expert makeup job that had aged him several decades. His normally youthful features were now lined with wrinkles, his hair streaked with grey. It was a surreal experience, seeing himself transformed into a completely different person.
"Wow, I can't believe this is actually happening," Ethan said, his voice tinged with a mixture of excitement and nervousness.
Emily, standing beside him, offered a reassuring smile. "You look amazing, Ethan. No one would ever guess it's you." Ethan nodded, his heart pounding with hope.
"Thanks, Em. I just hope I can pull this off without anyone suspecting a thing."
Emily placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You'll do great, Ethan. Just remember to stay focused and observe everything around you. We're counting on you to gather valuable insights into the company culture." With a deep breath, Ethan gathered his resolve, steeling himself for the challenge ahead.
"All right, let's do this."
As they made their way to the office, a thrill shot through Ethan, but it was chased by a shiver of worry. The streets were busy with activity, the city coming alive with the promise of a new day. But for Ethan, it was as if he was stepping into a different world altogether. A world where he was no longer the CEO of a successful company, but a humble janitor tasked with cleaning up after others. Arriving at the office building, Ethan bid farewell to Emily and made his way to the employee entrance. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the role he was about to play. With each step he took, the pressure of his disguise settled around him like a cloak, hiding his true identity from prying eyes. Entering the building, Ethan was immediately struck by the familiar hustle and bustle of the workplace. Employees hurried past him, their faces obscured by a mask of concentration, as they went about their daily routines. It was a stark contrast to the polished veneer of professionalism that Ethan was accustomed to, a reminder that behind the facade of success lay the reality of everyday struggles and challenges. Making his way to the janitor's closet, Ethan donned his uniform with practiced ease, the familiar routine grounding him amidst the sea of unfamiliar faces. Working alongside the other janitors, Ethan felt a silent bond forming. They understood each other without a word. The day passed in a blur of activity, Ethan moving from one task to the next with single-minded grit. He scrubbed floors, emptied trash cans, and polished surfaces until they gleamed, his hands working tirelessly to ensure that every corner of the building was pristine. But among the mundane tasks, Ethan felt the feeling of tension that gnawed at him at the back of his mind. He also noticed the way some employees treated him with disdain, their words laced with thinly veiled contempt. It was a sobering reminder of the hierarchy that existed within the company, a hierarchy that placed janitors at the bottom rung of the ladder. As the day wore on, Ethan found himself growing increasingly disillusioned with the reality of life as a janitor. It was grueling work, thankless and exhausting, with little recognition or reward. The road got bumpy, but Ethan dug his heels in. He was finishing what he started. Finally, as the clock struck 5, Ethan made his way back to the janitor's closet, his body weary and his mind heavy with thoughts. It had been a long and exhausting day, but a smug grin spread across his face that watched over him as he surveyed his handiwork. For all its hardships, there was a certain satisfaction in knowing that he'd have made a difference, no matter how small. As he changed out of his uniform and prepared to leave for the day, Ethan let out a long breath he didn't realize he was holding. Tension melted away. The first day of his experiment was behind him, and while it had been challenging, it had also been illuminating. He had gained valuable insights into the inner workings of the company, insights that would prove invaluable in the days to come. Exiting the building, Ethan was greeted by the sight of Emily waiting for him outside, her face alive with anticipation. "How was it, Ethan? Did everything go okay?" Ethan nodded, a weary smile tangling at the corner of his lips.
"It was an experience, to say the least. But I think we're onto something here, Em. I saw things today that I would never have noticed as the CEO."
Emily's eyes widened with interest. Like what? Ethan recounted his experiences from the day, detailing the interactions he had observed and the insights he had gleaned into the company culture.
"Oh, it's clear that there's a lot of work to be done, Em, but I'm more determined than ever to make a difference."
Emily nodded, her expression serious but determined. "We'll get through this together, Ethan. I have faith in you." With that, they made their way home, their minds swarming with thoughts and ideas for the days ahead. As they settled in for the evening, Ethan felt a sense of excitement building within him. The experiment was far from over, but already he could sense the seeds of change taking root, a glimmer of hope amid the chaos of corporate life. The next day dawned bright and early, Ethan once again donning his disguise and venturing into the office. But this time, he approached the day with a newfound sense of purpose and determination. He was no longer just a janitor. He was a catalyst for change, a force for good in a world that desperately needed it. As he moved through the building, Ethan couldn't help but notice a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Employees greeted him with nods and smiles, their interactions warmer and more respectful than the day before. It was a small change, to be sure, but it spoke volumes about the impact of his experiment. Throughout the day, Ethan continued to observe and document his interactions with the employees, noting any changes or improvements in their behaviour. And to his surprise and delight, he found that the once hostile attitudes he had encountered were gradually being replaced by a spirit of kindness and camaraderie. By the end of the day, Ethan was filled with a sense of cautious optimism. As he made his way home, he knew that he and Emily were on the right track, that together they could create a workplace where kindness and compassion reigned supreme. Ethan flopped onto the couch, a grin splitting his face. Today had been a win. There were bumps in the road ahead, no doubt, but with Emily's shoulder to lean on, Ethan knew they'd get through it together. As they drifted off to sleep, their dreams filled with visions of a brighter future, Ethan knew that they were on the verge of something truly extraordinary. 2 days passed in a blur of sweeping, mopping, and emptying trash cans for Ethan, now fully immersed in his role as Eddie, the janitor. The routine had become somewhat monotonous, but Ethan knew that every moment spent in disguise was a step closer to knowing his company's culture. The usual pep in Ethan's step was missing as he entered the office for the 3rd day. He'd tuned out the sideways glances and hushed gossip by day 2. Today, though, silence felt deafening. It was as if a heaviness hung in the air, weighing down his spirits as he made his way through the busy corridors. 1 minute, Ethan was cruising down the hall. The next, bam! His foot caught on something and he went sprawling. Arms flailing like a windmill, he tried to catch himself, but it was too late. A chorus of laughter erupted around him, bouncing off the walls like a bad echo chamber. His co-workers were pointing, their snickers turning into full-blown jeers. Humiliation burned hot in Ethan's cheeks as he scrambled to his feet, his eyes stinging with unshed tears. But just as he was about to retreat in shame, a voice cut through the noise like a beacon in the darkness. "Hey, are you okay?" Ethan looked up to see a woman standing before him, her face etched with concern. She was beautiful, with warm brown eyes and a gentle smile that put him instantly at ease. Yeah, I'm fine," Ethan muttered, his voice rough with embarrassment. The woman knelt down beside him, offering him a hand up. "Here, let me help you." Ethan accepted her offer gratefully, allowing her to pull him to his feet. He marvelled at her kindness, a stark contrast to the cruelty he had encountered from his other colleagues. "Thanks," he mumbled, his cheeks still flushed with embarrassment. The woman smiled warmly at him. "No problem, sir. Are you sure you're okay?" Ethan nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude towards this stranger who had shown him such kindness in his moment of need. "Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for helping me." The woman's smile widened. "I'm Mia, by the way. What's your name?" Ethan hesitated for a moment, his mind racing as he tried to remember his new identity. Eddie. My name's Eddie." Mia nodded, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Eddie." "Don't worry about those other people, they're just jerks." Ethan laughed at her bluntness, a warmth spreading through him at her words.
"Yeah, tell me about it."
Mia's expression softened. "Seriously, though, it's not cool to laugh at someone when they're down. We should all try to be a little kinder to each other, don't you think?" Ethan nodded, his heart swelling with admiration for this stranger, who had shown him such compassion.
"Yeah, we definitely should."
Mia smiled at him, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Well, I should probably get back to work, but it was nice meeting you, Eddie. Don't let those other people get you down, okay?" Ethan watched as Mia walked away, her words mirroring in his mind long after she had disappeared from view. It was a small encounter, but it had left a lasting impression on him, a reminder of the power of kindness in a world that often seemed devoid of it. As he continued his duties for the rest of the day, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of gratitude that washed over him. Maybe his experiment wasn't so crazy after all. Today's act of kindness felt like a tiny spark, igniting a flicker of hope in him. Maybe, just maybe, by treating each other with respect, they could turn this place into something decent. After Ethan's eventful day at work, he rushed home to share every detail with Emily. Bursting with excitement and urgency, he barged into their shared living space where Emily was already stationed with a cup of tea in hand, ready to hear about his day.
Emily, you won't believe what happened today,
Ethan exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement as he practically bounced into the room. Emily glanced up from her book, amusement dancing in her eyes as she noted her brother's enthusiasm. "Oh, do tell, Eddie. Did you have an adventure in the janitorial realm?" Ethan chuckled, slightly taken aback by Emily's teasing tone.
You could say that, Em, but seriously, you have to hear about the encounter I had with someone at work today.
Setting her book aside, Emily gestured for Ethan to join her on the couch. "All right, spill the beans. What mischief did you get up to today?" Ethan eagerly launched into the tale of his encounter with Mia, recounting every detail from the moment he fell to the ground to the kindness and compassion she had shown him.
"And then she helped me up and told everyone to stop laughing,"
Ethan concluded, his eyes shining with excitement.
"Oh, she was amazing, Emily, truly amazing." "So, who is this Mia anyway?"
Ethan inquired, a hint of genuine interest lacing his voice as he turned to Emily for answers. Emily smirked mischievously, enjoying her brother's eagerness. Mia. She's just a regular entry-level marketing trainee in our company, Eddie. Nothing too exciting." Ethan's eyebrows shot up in surprise.
"Really? I've never seen her around before."
Emily raised an eyebrow, a playful smirk tugging at the corners of her lips. "Sounds like you found yourself a workplace crush, Eddie. Should I be worried?" Ethan's cheeks flushed slightly at Emily's teasing remark, but he laughed it off.
"Come on, Em, it's not like that. Mia's just, different, you know? She's kind and genuine, unlike some of the other employees."
Emily chuckled, nudging her brother playfully. All right, I believe you, but just remember, don't get too distracted by your newfound admirer. We've got a mission to accomplish, remember?" Ethan nodded, his expression turning more serious as he remembered their ultimate goal.
"Oh, you're right, Em. Mia might be a ray of sunshine in this gloomy workplace, but we can't lose sight of what we're here to do."
The playful jabs took a break as Ethan and Emily huddled together, plotting their next move. Mia's kindness felt like a golden ticket, and they were brainstorming ways to use it to make things better around the office. Finally hitting the hay, their laughter bounced off the walls, the sound pure sibling magic. They were in this together, and nothing could stop them. 2 days whooshed by in a whirlwind for Ethan. Mop in hand, his mind was on fire, cooking up ideas for the epic project he and Emily were planning after their secret mission. Scrubbing floors, emptying bins, it was all a blur, punctuated by stolen glances whenever Mia walked by. The janitor disguise wasn't exactly glamorous, and the work was, well, gross. But even through the grime, Ethan couldn't miss the little sparks with Mia. Her friendly hellos, the way she actually cared when he tripped. There was a realness to her that got under his skin. As the days dwindled down to just 2 more before their mission's end, Ethan felt a pang of sadness. He would miss the simplicity of his janitorial role and, more importantly, the chance encounters with Mia that brightened his days. On the 6th day, as Ethan diligently went about his tasks, he was pleasantly surprised when Mia approached him during a lull in her duties. Seizing the opportunity for conversation, she struck up a casual chat with him, her smile as radiant as ever. "Hey there, Mr. Eddie," Mia greeted him, her voice soft and friendly. "How's your day going?" Ethan, momentarily taken aback by her attention, managed a sheepish grin.
"Oh, you know, same old, he replied, trying to sound nonchalant despite the flutter of excitement in his chest. "Just cleaning up after everyone." A laugh bubbled out of Mia, a sweet melody that danced down the corridor. "Well, I appreciate all your hard work. You make this place look much better than it would without you." Flushed with gratitude at her kind words, Ethan cleared his throat awkwardly, unsure of how to respond. "Oh, thanks, Mia. That means a lot coming from you." Mia, cool as a cucumber despite his flustered state, leaned against the wall, a curious glint in her eyes. "So, Mr. Eddie, tell me about yourself.
Where are you from? Do you have any family? Ethan hesitated for a moment, grappling with the urge to reveal his true identity, but then he reminded himself of the importance of maintaining his cover, if only for a little while longer.
I'm from, just a small town nearby, he improvised, inwardly cringing at his lack of creativity. And, my family, well, they're not around much.
Mia nodded understandingly, her expression sympathetic. I'm sorry to hear that. Family's important. The lie tasted like ashes in Ethan's mouth. He forced a swallow, then steered the conversation away from him, his mind racing to find a new topic.
What about you, Mia? Where's home for you?
A wistful smile tugged at Mia's lips as she thought of her hometown. I'm from Harper's Ferry, a small town not too far from here. It's a beautiful place, nestled in the mountains. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and there's a sense of community that you don't find anywhere else. Ethan hung on to every word, enamoured by her story.
Sounds like a lovely place. And your family? Do you have any siblings?
Mia shook her head, a fondness in her eyes as she spoke of her grandmother. It's just me and my grandmother, Evelyn. She's the most incredible woman I know. Ethan's interest deepened as Mia spoke of her grandmother.
His ears perked up. Tell me more about her, he said gently, his gaze fixed on hers.
There was a story behind her eyes, and he was eager to hear it.
A soft smile graced Mia's features as she launched into her tale.
Well, my grandmother Evelyn is one of a kind. She's always been the pillar of strength for our family, the one we all turn to in times of need. Ethan listened intently, captivated by Mia's story.
What does she do? He inquired, dying to hear all about this amazing woman.
Mia practically glowed as she talked about her grandmother's achievements. She runs a small cafe in town, but that's just the beginning. Grandma Evelyn also runs a small NGO that she started years ago to help kids and adults in our community. Ethan's admiration for Mia grew as he listened to her speak of her grandmother's selfless work.
That's incredible, he murmured, genuinely impressed by Evelyn's dedication to making a difference.
Mia nodded, her gaze distant as she recalled the countless hours her grandmother had devoted to helping others. She's always been passionate about giving back to our community. It's like she has this endless well of compassion and kindness. Mia's love for her grandma practically shone through her. Ethan found himself nodding along, impressed.
She sounds amazing, he remarked sincerely. You must have learnt a lot from her.
A soft smile graced Mia's features as she nodded. I have. She taught me everything I know about compassion, kindness, and warmth. She's the reason I strive to make a difference in the world, even if it's just in small ways. Ethan felt a swell of admiration for Mia, impressed by her dedication to making a positive impact.
You're a truly remarkable person, Mia, he said earnestly, his gaze meeting hers.
Mia's smile widened at this compliment, her eyes sparkling with warmth. Thank you, Mr. Eddie. That means a lot. With a final smile, Mia excused herself, disappearing down the hallway to attend to her duties. Ethan stood there for a beat, feeling like he'd just met a unicorn. Back to mopping duty, but he couldn't wipe the grin off his face. This janitor gig had just gotten a whole lot more interesting. As the final day of his disguise dawned, Ethan found himself wrestling with conflicting emotions. While part of him was relieved that his charade was coming to an end, another part felt a pang of sadness, and the reason was none other than Mia. Emily, with her eagle eyes for her brother's feelings, spotted the frown etched on Ethan's face as they got ready. "What's wrong, Ethan?" she inquired, her brow furrowing with concern. Ethan hesitated, unsure whether to confide in his sister about his feelings for Mia. Instead, he offered a weak smile and shook his head.
It's nothing, Em. I'm just tired, I guess, he replied, his voice tinged with forced nonchalance.
Unconvinced by Ethan's response, Emily regarded him with a scrutinizing gaze, but ultimately decided not to press the issue further. "All right, but if you need to talk, I'm here," she assured him, her tone gentle yet firm. With a nod of gratitude, Ethan bid his sister farewell and made his way to the office, his mind preoccupied with thoughts of Mia. As he went about his duties, collecting the necessary information for the day, he couldn't shake the sense of impending farewell looming over him. As evening approached, Ethan found himself engrossed in his work when he felt a familiar presence at his side. Turning, he met Mia's warm gaze, her smile brightening the dimly lit corridor. "Hey, Mr. Eddie," Mia greeted him cheerfully, her voice a welcome interruption to the monotony of his tasks. Ethan returned her smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes.
"Hey, Mia,"
he replied, his tone tinged with a hint of melancholy. Sensing his subdued mood, Mia furrowed her brow in concern. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice laced with genuine worry. Ethan hesitated, torn between revealing the truth to Mia and maintaining his facade. In the end, he opted for the latter, offering her a reassuring smile.
"Yeah, just some personal stuff," he replied evasively, hoping to divert her attention.
Mia's eyes softened, a mix of concern and curiosity peeking through. But instead of prying, she switched gears, launching into a light-hearted story as they worked. A good way to keep his mind off whatever was bugging him. The more they talked, the more Ethan slumped. Their undercover thing was almost over, and the thought of saying goodbye bummed him out majorly. He just had to soak up every last minute with Mia before they went their separate ways. Finally, as the day drew to a close, Ethan mustered the courage to broach the subject with Mia.
"Hey, Mia,"
he began tentatively, his voice barely above a whisper. Mia turned to him, her expression one of genuine inquiry. "Yeah, Mr. Eddie? What's up?" she asked, her eyes searching his for any sign of distress. Taking a deep breath, Ethan forged ahead, his heart heavy with regret.
"I just wanted to let you know that, I won't be here tomorrow,"
he confessed, his voice cracking with emotion. Mia's brow furrowed in confusion, her gaze flickering with concern. "Why? What happened?" she inquired, her voice tinged with apprehension. Ethan struggled to find the right words, his throat constricting with unspoken emotions.
I have to go back to my hometown,"
he replied lamely, his gaze falling to the floor. Mia's expression softened with understanding as she reached out to touch his arm. "I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. Eddie," she murmured, her voice filled with genuine empathy. Ethan forced a smile, though it faltered at the edges.
"Yeah, me too,"
he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. For a moment they stood in silence, the weight of their impending farewell hanging heavily between them. Then, with a heavy heart, Ethan bid Mia goodbye, their parting words laden with unspoken sentiment. Going home that night, Ethan couldn't ditch the sick feeling in his guts. Sure, he went undercover for a reason, but somewhere along the way things got messy. He wasn't just a janitor to Mia anymore. They'd connected, and that wasn't part of the plan. Replaying the last week in his head, Ethan second-guessed keeping his real identity a secret from Mia. But one thing stuck with him, clear as day, even in those short moments. Her kindness floored him. He wouldn't forget her genuine warmth any time soon. A month passed after the mission wrapped, and Emily couldn't ignore the worry gnawing at her every time she saw Ethan. His sunshine smile seemed to have gone into hiding, replaced by a cloud of sadness. She tried everything to pry open his clam-up mode, but he kept his troubles under lock and key. Ethan, meanwhile, was a tangled mess of feelings. Mission accomplished, sure, but a pit of regret kept growing in his stomach. Every time he saw Mia around the office, it was like a punch in the gut. They'd connected as Eddie the janitor, and now there she was, a ghost of that time. All he wanted was to blurt it all out, tell her the real him, but something held him back. The guilt of lying to Mia was a ton of bricks on his chest, making it hard to breathe, let alone think straight. How could he ever come clean? He'd built this whole fake janitor life, and now it felt impossible to unravel. Even if he spilt the truth, would she ever look at him the same way again? Doubt gnawed at him. Ethan was oblivious to the world, caught in a mental maze. Emily watched him from across the room, her worry lines deepening by the day. Ever since their mission, he'd been a different guy, lost, a shadow of his usual self. She tried everything to get him to talk, but his silence was like a locked door, and she had no key. Something big was bugging him, and it was killing her not to know. Finally, unable to bear the silence any longer, Emily approached her brother one afternoon, her expression a mixture of concern and determination. "Ethan, we need to talk," she said firmly, her voice leaving no room for argument. Ethan glanced up from his work, his brow furrowed in confusion. "What's wrong, Em?" he asked, his voice tinged with apprehension. Emily took a deep breath, steeling herself for the conversation ahead. "I've noticed how unhappy you've been lately, Ethan," she began, her voice gentle yet firm. "And I can't help but worry about you." Ethan's shoulders slumped in defeat as he met his sister's gaze. "Oh, it's nothing, Em," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. But Emily wasn't about to let him off the hook that easily. "Don't give me that, Ethan," she countered, her tone unwavering. "I know something's been bothering you, and I want you to tell me what it is." Ethan hesitated, torn between his desire to confide in his sister and the fear of burdening her with his troubles. But as he looked into Emily's eyes, he saw nothing but genuine concern and love reflected back at him, and he knew that he couldn't keep his feelings bottled up any longer. Taking a deep breath, Ethan finally spoke, his voice tinged with vulnerability. "It's Mia," he admitted, his words heavy with regret. I think I've developed feelings for her." Emily's eyes widened in surprise at her brother's confession, but she remained silent, giving him the space to continue. "I know it sounds crazy," Ethan continued, his voice tinged with self-doubt, "but ever since the mission, I can't seem to get her out of my head." Emily listened intently as Ethan poured out his heart, his words a torrent of pent-up emotions and regrets, and as he spoke, she felt a pang of sadness for her brother, knowing the internal struggle he must be facing. When Ethan finally fell silent, Emily reached out to place a comforting hand on his arm. "Ethan, you need to tell her," she urged gently, her voice filled with empathy. "You can't keep this bottled up inside forever." Ethan shook his head, his expression fraught with uncertainty. "But what if she hates me for lying to her?" he whispered, his voice filled with fear. Emily squeezed his arm reassuringly, her gaze unwavering. "You won't know unless you try, Ethan," she replied firmly. "And besides, if Mia truly cares about you, she'll understand." Ethan stared at Emily, his brain in overdrive. A million thoughts and feelings were wrestling for control, but a tiny voice buried deep down whispered the truth. Em was right. He couldn't keep hiding behind this janitor's lie. It wasn't fair to him, and it definitely wasn't fair to Mia. Honesty, that was the only way forward. With a newfound sense of determination, Ethan made up his mind. He would find Mia and lay his heart bare. Consequences be damned. For better or for worse, it was time to face the truth. The private space at the Star Hotel exuded an air of exclusivity, its plush furnishings and subdued lighting creating an atmosphere of quiet sophistication. Mia stepped inside, her senses immediately assailed by the scent of freshly brewed coffee and the soft strains of classical music playing in the background. She cast a curious glance around the room, her eyes scanning the elegant surroundings in search of her supposed lunch companion. To her surprise, the only occupant of the room was Ethan Knight, the CEO of her company, sitting at a table near the window with a contemplative expression on his face. Mia's brow furrowed in confusion as she approached, her mind racing with questions. What was Ethan doing here, and why had Emily arranged this meeting under false pretense? "Mr. Knight?" she ventured, her voice tinged with uncertainty as she took a seat opposite him. I thought I was meeting with a client." Ethan offered her a small, reassuring smile as he gestured for her to sit.
"I'm afraid that wasn't entirely truthful," he admitted, his tone apologetic. "I asked Emily to arrange this meeting because I wanted to speak with you privately."
Mia's confusion only deepened at Ethan's words, her mind struggling to process the unexpected turn of events. "Speak with me?" she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. "But why? What could you possibly want to talk to me about?" Ethan hesitated, his gaze flickering briefly to the tablecloth before meeting hers once more.
"Because there are things I need to tell you, Mia," he replied earnestly, his voice tinged with vulnerability. "Things that I've been keeping from you."
Mia's heart skipped a beat at the solemnity of his tone. Her curiosity piqued as she leaned in closer, her eyes fixed on his face. "What things?" she pressed, her voice barely above a whisper. And so, in the quiet intimacy of that private space, Ethan began to speak. He spoke of his childhood, of the struggles he had faced growing up in a family torn apart by conflict and resentment. He spoke of his determination to succeed, of the sacrifices he had made to climb the corporate ladder and carve out a name for himself in the cutthroat world of business. But most importantly, he spoke of the mission that had brought them together in the most unexpected of ways. He spoke of his decision to disguise himself as Eddie, the janitor, of the lessons he had learned and the connections he had forged during his time undercover. As Ethan's tale came to an end, a heavy silence settled over the room, broken only by the soft murmur of distant conversation from the hotel's bustling corridors. Mia sat in stunned silence, her mind reeling from the weight of Ethan's confession. I don't understand," she finally managed to stammer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you telling me all of this now?" Ethan's expression softened at her words, his gaze meeting hers with a mixture of remorse and sincerity.
"Because I need you to know the truth, Mia," he replied earnestly. "I need you to understand why I did what I did and how deeply sorry I am for deceiving you."
Mia's heart ached at the sincerity in his voice, her mind swirling with conflicting emotions. She wanted to be angry at Ethan for lying to her, for playing with her emotions, but beneath the anger there was something else, something she couldn't quite name. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I mean, on the one hand, I'm furious that you would deceive me like this, but on the other hand, I can't deny that there's something between us that I can't ignore." Ethan's heart skipped a beat at her words, a flicker of hope igniting within him.
"Mia, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," he began, his voice tinged with desperation, "but I promise you I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. Please give me a chance to prove myself to you."
Mia hesitated, her gaze searching his for any sign of deceit or insincerity. But all she found was raw honesty and vulnerability, laid bare before her like an open book. And in that moment she made a decision to trust Ethan, to forgive him for his mistakes, and to see where this unexpected journey might lead them. With a small, hesitant smile, she reached across the table to place her hand atop his, her eyes meeting his in silent understanding. "I'll give you a chance, Ethan," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper, "but you'd better not mess this up." Ethan couldn't contain his gratitude towards Emily as he thanked her profusely for setting up the meeting with Mia.
I owe you big time, Em, he said, his voice filled with genuine appreciation. Without you, I don't think I would have had the courage to confess everything to Mia.
Emily smiled warmly at her brother, her eyes reflecting his happiness. You don't have to thank me, Ethan, she replied, her tone filled with sisterly affection. I just wanted to see you happy. As Ethan and Mia began dating, their bonds grew stronger with each passing day. They shared laughter, dreams and secrets, each moment solidifying the connection between them. Seeing Ethan click with Mia, a grin stretched across Emily's face. It warmed her heart to see her brother finding love in such a surprising way. Maybe a tiny, secret part of her felt a bit smug for playing Cupid, but mostly there was just pure joy. Of course, things weren't all sunshine and rainbows. When Ethan introduced Mia to his parents, let's just say they weren't exactly popping champagne corks. They grilled her about her life, her goals, basically everything under the sun, trying to figure out if she was good enough for their boy. Their doubts bounced right off Ethan. He knew deep down in his gut that Mia was it for him. No way his parents' worries were going to change his mind. Even though Ethan's parents were nervous at first, things between him and Mia kept getting better and better. They even met Mia's grandma, Evelyn, who practically gushed over Ethan. It was a total win. As their love grew deeper, Ethan shared his excitement with Mia about the initiative he and Emily had been planning.
I want you to be a part of this, Mia, he said, his eyes shining with anticipation. Together we can make a real difference.
Mia's face lit up with happiness at the prospect of joining Ethan and Emily's initiative. I would love to be a part of it, she replied, her voice filled with enthusiasm. Count me in. With hearts overflowing and a fire in their bellies, Ethan and Mia jumped into this next chapter, side by side. Whatever came their way, they'd face it together. As Ethan's love life found its smooth track, he shifted his focus entirely to the initiative he and Emily had been planning. One day he called Mia and Emily into his cabin, their anticipation palpable as they entered.
Hey guys, Ethan greeted them with a smile. Thanks for coming. I've been working on something and I really want to share it with you.
Mia and Emily exchanged curious glances before taking their seats, eager to hear what Ethan had to say. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with excitement.
I've been thinking a lot about how we can make a positive impact in our organisation, and I've come up with this idea called the kindness ripple.
Both Mia and Emily perked up at the mention of the initiative. The kindness ripple? Emily repeated, intrigued. Ethan nodded.
Yeah, it's all about creating a cascading effect of kindness throughout the company. I believe that if we start small, with simple acts of kindness, we can create a ripple effect that spreads throughout the entire organisation.
Mia smiled, impressed by Ethan's vision. That sounds amazing, she said. But how do you plan on implementing it? Ethan leaned back in his chair, his mind already racing with ideas.
Well, I've outlined a few key components, he began. First, we'll need to set up a kick-off event to launch the initiative. We'll use this event to highlight the importance of kindness in the workplace and introduce the concept of the kindness ripple to everyone.
Emily nodded in agreement. That's a great way to get everyone on board, she remarked. Ethan continued, his enthusiasm growing with each passing moment.
Next, we'll implement a random acts of kindness challenge. We'll divide employees into small teams, and each week, a team will be randomly chosen to be the kindness catalyst. They'll be responsible for completing a set number of random acts of kindness for their colleagues.
Mia's eyes widened with excitement. I love that idea, she exclaimed. It's such a simple yet effective way to promote kindness in the workplace. But Ethan wasn't finished yet.
We'll also implement a recognition and sharing component, he said. We'll create a platform for employees to anonymously share the kind acts they receive as part of the challenge. And we'll make sure to acknowledge and celebrate the Kindness Catalyst team each week.
Emily couldn't help but smile at Ethan's thoroughness. That's brilliant, she said. It's important to recognise and appreciate those who go above and beyond to spread kindness.
And finally, Ethan continued, we'll establish kindness champions. These will be a group of employees trained to be resources for their colleagues, offering support, mediating conflicts, and promoting positive interactions.
Mia and Emily were both impressed by Ethan's comprehensive plan. Ethan, this is incredible, Mia said, her voice filled with admiration. I'm so proud of you for coming up with such a thoughtful initiative. Emily nodded in agreement. Yeah, Ethan, this is really impressive, she added. I can't wait to get started on it. Ethan beamed with pride at their praise.
Thanks, guys, he said. But this is just the beginning. Together, I know we can make a real difference in our organisation.
With their hearts full of determination and excitement, Ethan, Mia and Emily set to work on bringing the kindness ripple to life, eager to spread positivity and compassion throughout their company. 2 months flew by in a blur of hard work and dedication as Ethan, Emily and Mia poured their hearts into launching the Kindness Ripple initiative. Finally, the big day arrived and the initiative was officially launched with great success. As the days passed, the impact of their efforts became increasingly evident, bringing about positive change throughout the company. Ethan, Emily and Mia found themselves beaming with pride as they witnessed the transformative power of their initiative. The atmosphere in the office seemed lighter, and the employees appeared more engaged and connected than ever before. I can't believe how well everything's going, Emily remarked, her eyes shining with excitement. Ethan nodded in agreement, a sense of fulfillment washing over him.
Yeah, it's amazing to see the difference we're making, he replied.
Mia smiled warmly, her heart swelling with pride. I'm so grateful to be part of this, she said. It's truly inspiring to see how kindness can create such positive change. As they reflected on their journey, Ethan, Emily and Mia realised that they had formed not only a strong partnership, but also a true bond of friendship. They had faced challenges together, celebrated successes together, and grown closer through it all. It feels like we're all family now, Emily said, her voice filled with emotion. Ethan and Mia nodded in agreement, their smiles reflecting the deep sense of camaraderie they shared.
Definitely, Ethan said. And not just us, but the whole team. It's like we've created a little family within the company.
As they looked around the office, they saw employees laughing, chatting and supporting one another, evidence of the positive impact their initiative had made. It was a testament to the power of kindness and compassion to bring people together and create a sense of unity and belonging. I couldn't be happier with how things have turned out, Mia said, her eyes shining with pride. Ethan and Emily beamed right along with her. The feeling of making a real impact filled them both to the brim. They'd built something incredible together, a kindness train that wouldn't be stopping any time soon. It was going to keep rolling, stronger than ever.